Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Environmental Justice Now. My name is Leah Jones, and I am the organizing coordinator at Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. Before we get started today, I'd like to do a brief land acknowledgement. While we are on a video call and many of us are joining in from different places, we want to remind ourselves that we gather on the unceded land of the indigenous peoples. I am joining in from so-called Richmond, Virginia, and I am on the land of the Powhatan and Chickahominy peoples. If you are unsure whose land you are on and you would like to find out, you can visit native-land.ca to find out. So happy Friday, everyone. In this week's Environmental Justice Now, we are discussing Virginia's participation in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, also known as RGGI, its importance and the ongoing threats to the benefits that it provides for our neighbors. At a time when people across the state and the nation are already suffering from climate disruption, ranging from record-breaking storms to rising seas on the coast and the increasing burden of utility bills and shutoffs, it's really up to us to end the destruction of our environment and stand by initiatives that positively impact our communities. So luckily today we have the pleasure of learning more about RGGI with Zander, Chesapeake Climate Action Network's Northern Virginia organizer, and Emily, Appalachian Voices Energy Democracy Field Coordinator, who are these both of these people are awesome organizers and have been doing a lot of work to defend RGGI. So thank you all so much for joining us today. How are you all?
I'm great. Thanks, Kazan, for the invitation to be with you today.
Zander, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks a lot. Awesome. I'm glad to be here.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here today again. I'm excited to learn more about RGGI today. But to just get us started, could you guys just tell us a little bit about what RGGI is, and a little bit about the journey that it was to get the bill passed, and more so even keep Virginia in RGGI since joining the initiative in 2020?
Sure, I can start, and then we can keep going from there. Thanks a lot, Leah. So in 2020, Virginia set a goal of having 100% clean energy sector by 2050. But the energy companies are not going to do it on their own. We're going to have to make them. And that is one thing that RGGI is important to do. It's a tool to force our energy sector and the people and the companies that produce our power to transition to renewables. And it does that by penalizing them for continuing to emit greenhouse gases. And then it takes that money and it invests it back in our communities. Since we joined this program, we've raised over $350 million to go towards our communities. That goes towards two main things: helping us be prepared for flooding throughout the state and helping us have energy efficiency and health improvements in low and middle income homes. And something that I think is really important and helps tell this story is that 2/3 of Virginians want to stay in RGGI. When you ask them, they say, yes, I think it's a good idea to take $350 million from polluting companies and give it back to the people. I disagree with Governor Youngkin when he says, oh no, companies should keep it. And then our elected officials also want this. To tell the story of the most recent events, this past legislative session in Virginia, we defeated attack bill after attack bill after attack bill that was targeting RGGI. Governor Youngkin and allies introduced bills that said, we don't want this money, the companies can keep it, we don't care about our environment, we need to stay out of RGGI. And so as organizers, Emily and I and others would talk to our volunteers and our members, and we would say, can you talk to your elected official and let them know that you care about this and you really want to keep Virginia in RGGI? And we did. And our volunteers were great. They went and they made call after call. We actually had one legislator in Northern Virginia say, can you all stop calling? I got it. Like, we're going to stay in RGGI. It's good. We got this. And so we won in the legislative process. The people were victorious in that respect. And then Governor Youngkin didn't listen to us. And he went ahead and said, you know what, we're going to be sneaky in the budget and we'll see if we can bypass the will of the people that way. And we defeated him again through similar activism. And now he's back at it again with another shady way to try and subvert the will of Virginians and harm our communities.
Yeah, I think that was a great overview and introduction, Zander. I think one thing that you've actually highlighted before is how there's a lack of transparency from the Youngkin administration, and like a lack of democratic involvement that's being offered to people who've already said that they want us to stay in RGGI, they like the program, they want us to stay, continue benefiting from it, and there isn't much opportunity that he's providing for people to continue to make their voices heard and show their support for RGGI. So I think something to highlight as well.
No, definitely. I think it's really been very tone deaf as of late for Governor Youngkin to continue to push and push and push against something that people so clearly, even Zander, you saying legislators, when they pick up the phone saying, we get it, like RGGI is okay, it's just furthermore proof that, this is what the people want. The people have spoken. But continue to be ignored. And even more so, just ignore the benefits that it actually is providing for Virginians. And I think there was even, I've heard less about it now, but especially when Youngkin was first making statements on RGGI, and saying all these things about how it's actually not benefiting Virginians and taking money away from them. It was totally contradictory to what is actually happening, and we see with local communities and how it's actually benefited them thus far since the legislation has even passed since 2020, and Virginia has been participating. So could you all, I know, Emily, you wanted to speak especially to more about how RGGI has really been seen benefiting our local communities across the state, and just any further examples to really showcase how RGGI has been having an impact, even just this short amount of time.
Sure, yeah. So earlier Zander referenced I think it was $350 million that Virginia has received from our participation in RGGI already. So there's, that huge economic impact. There's also, the carbon emissions reduction impact. That's great. But both of those contribute to improved public health. And so a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. I wanted to put some specific numbers to this so people could understand how all of that money is being spent. So first of all, we know that there's about 2,300 energy efficient, affordable homes that are being built with the proceeds from RGGI, and that's all throughout Virginia. And we know, especially here in Virginia, that affordable housing is a huge problem, and safe, comfortable, quality housing that doesn't use too much energy, that doesn't place an additional burden on the folks who live there. That's hard to come by. And so those are, almost more than 2,000 new homes that are being built with these funds to try to tackle that crisis. And then we also know that 49 grants have been awarded to localities across the state to help them tackle the current flooding. So, as we know, there was recent devastating flooding in Buchanan County. And that made clear, I think, to a lot of people that flood risk, especially flood risk related to climate change, isn't isolated to communities living along the coast. We know that counties in far southwest Virginia, including Lee County, Wise County, and Scott County, are prone to riverine flooding. There's these mountain areas that, people live in the valleys that just, steep mountainsides that, rivers and streams flow through there, and they just, they're prone to flooding as well. And these are primarily low-income areas that aren't equipped to respond to major floods, and they really struggle to bounce back from them. And so one project I wanted to highlight was that the Planning District Commission for the Southwest region was awarded $150,000 from RGGI. And they are using this money to review and update existing flood resiliency plans, but also to develop a more comprehensive plan and a roadmap for the future of that region to try to address the flooding that we know is continuing to pose a threat, can continue to come. But also, many folks in that far southwest region are customers of Old Dominion Power, which is an electric utility that serves Lee, Wise, and Scott counties. And this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but because Old Dominion Power doesn't own any generating stations in Virginia, they don't actually participate in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. So customers of those utilities are not paying for the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative in any way, but they're receiving all of the benefits of the program because there are energy efficient, affordable homes that are being built in those areas. And then, as I was just talking about, the Planning District Commission has received a huge chunk of change from RGGI to try to address the flood problem there. So those are just a couple of examples that I wanted to highlight of how RGGI is actually benefiting our communities.
No, that's amazing already. And I think to your point, flooding isn't just an issue that we see on the coast at all. And it's going to continue to worsen, especially here in Virginia, for folks on the coast also. But, even just with surging storms, I feel like flooding becomes a realer issue for people in even urban communities where we see Virginia's old water infrastructure failing, and not being able to keep up with all these storm surges. And people's backyards flooding. I know that was even a thing. I met people in Petersburg dealing with that. So it's really incredible to think about like RGGI, a program like that being taken away when we're considering even more communities will be in need as the years progress, right? So yeah, is there anything that you wanted to add, Zander?
Just really briefly to get in the weeds a little bit more, because I think it illustrates how much the governor is willing to sacrifice our most vulnerable Virginians. The specific houses that are being targeted for these RGGI funds to be improved to make them healthy and energy efficient and safe for people, they're the ones that need the most work. They need so much work that under our current structure, they actually can't get funds without RGGI. And so that means that Virginia has some funds to maybe put in insulation or change people's windows to make them more energy efficient and lower people's electricity bills. But if you've got a broken roof, your insulation's not going to do any good. Mm. And so those are the funds that RGGI is going towards. It's the most at-need homes that need the most work. And it's filling a gap that actually works really well with how we're already caring for people throughout the state.
Right. So to leave RGGI behind would be another example of, again, leaving our most vulnerable community members, our most vulnerable neighbors throughout the state behind, again, in a time where we see we really need to show up. And it's getting to a point like where we don't have an option not to show up anymore. So I definitely think that, it's for that being alone, it is an important enough reason to keep fighting, to keep RGGI, Virginia as a part of RGGI. I'm struggling so hard to talk today, but yes, I think.
Can I add just kind of one more thing?
Oh yeah.
I feel like I could go on about the benefits of RGGI for a long time, but I just really love how the program proceeds are being used to proactively respond to the climate crisis and the anticipated flooding. So I just feel like so much of sort of crisis, of dealing with the crisis is retroactive. It's after the fact. And I think RGGI is really trying to, the proceeds are being used to take a step forward and think, okay, well, what do we expect to happen in these communities? And how can we get ahead of that before we see the type of devastation that we've seen in Southwest Virginia and Appalachia this summer. But then the final thing I'll say on this is I'll share a link with you that we can hopefully share with folks who are listening in today, so they can look up their communities to see if they've received any proceeds from RGGI and how those proceeds might be being invested in their communities. And I'll put that in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. I think we were able to get it up on the screen right now.
Okay, yes.
Folks want to learn more about how actual communities have been benefiting thus far from RGGI, you should definitely check out that link. But thanks so much, Emily. I think that, it being proactive is something especially important we need to consider across the board when we're thinking about the climate crisis and climate justice in general. So it is refreshing to know that RGGI is something, a program that is being proactive and trying to do that work on the front end before. I mean, honestly, it already has been happening, but before it gets even worse. Um, but yeah, I think those are definitely all important reasons that we should be making sure to lift up Reggie and support Reggie, and really defend it as we continue to see threats come up. And mentioning like defending Reggie, I know there's been a lot of organizing as of late to make sure we are able to keep Virginia as a part of Reggie. And I know there are plenty of ways for people to participate. So, can either of you share more about how people can continue to show their support for Reggie, like the ways that you mentioned, Xander, folks even calling their legislators, or participating in some of the upcoming events that are in defense of Reggie? So, how can folks get involved?
I guess I can speak to the upcoming events. And Xander, if you want to maybe talk about some of the other opportunities like making phone calls or writing letters. Yeah, great. So I have been really fortunate to work with Xander and other environmental organizers throughout Virginia to organize a series of, I guess it's 6 rallies for August 31st. And we've picked the date of August 31st because it's expected that the State Air Pollution Control Board, which is an arm within the Department of Environmental Quality, is going to be meeting and having been directed by Governor Youngkin to potentially pursue a repeal of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, we're expecting that there may be some discussion of RGGI at this meeting on the 31st. So we want to show up in 6 different communities around Virginia to say, no, we need to stay in this program. It's benefiting Virginians, and this is why. So anyway, we have rallies in Richmond, Roanoke, Abingdon, Harrisonburg, Woodbridge, Virginia Beach. Let's see, did I get them all? Harrisonburg. Anyway, yeah, we have 6 rallies. I think that's all, but maybe I'll start in alphabetical order. Abingdon, Harrisonburg, Richmond, Roanoke, Woodbridge, and Virginia Beach. Yeah, that's all of them. August 31st, I think mostly in the morning, although I think the Virginia Beach one is going to be at the end of the day. But anyway, we've got some information about those rallies. People are going to be holding signs outside of some local Department of Environmental Quality offices, calling on Governor Youngkin to stay in the program. So yeah, we'll share that link. I would love for folks to sign up and come out and hold signs and show their support of climate action in Virginia. And yeah, it's just going to be great to see people from all across Virginia, making their voices heard. So this is a great opportunity. There's been a lot of excitement about it so far, and we'd love to see you all there. And Xander, I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Sure.
Who's organizing the Woodbridge rally in particular?
Yeah, one thing that I'll just reiterate is that we still aren't sure if they will discuss RGGI on this day, because that's how undemocratic and untransparent this governor is and how willing he is to sacrifice our communities for his national political ambitions. Emily and I have been planning this, but we don't know what they'll say, and they have up until like 3 days before to tell us, which is just, and even when they tell us, there's not really a great way for us to make our voices heard in the building, which is why we really want to bring people together, because this is how we can build community and share what we need to do. And the other thing that I'll add is that we're also doing some outreach to people who are benefiting from RGGI who may not even know it. On the Friday before these rallies, on the 26th, I'm getting together a group of people to go throughout Alexandria. And we actually used the map that Emily shared earlier to look where RGGI funds are being shared in our communities. And we're going to go door to door, and we're going to talk to people and businesses that are going to benefit from this. And we're going to talk to them about flooding because that's what people know. And we're going to say, you flooded last month. How was that for you? We really do want to know. And what do you think? Do you think we should give back this money, or do you think we should use it to keep your community above water? And then we're going to talk to people about that. So that's something that Emily and I would be thrilled to do with your neighbors and your communities. So I would just add, in addition to these 31st events, give us a call. You have our contact information. We would love to hear your story and hear why you care about this and think about what we can do together. And yeah, and that's what I'll share.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much. Definitely lots of people needed, I'm sure, especially to knock on doors and continue also to use our voices, right? Make some noise and prepare for just really honestly as we prepare for the worst, because we don't know. But in the meantime, I think it's definitely important that we get as many people involved as we can, to continue to show our support, continue to show the governor that people do care about Reggie. People are actually benefiting from Reggie. People, like you said, want to continue to be a part of it, and experiencing those benefits that it brings. So if you all watching would like to participate, please be sure to go out to the links that we shared with you all on screens today, and we'll be sure to put them in the comments as well, for folks to easily access. So get involved and share your support. Yes, and we'll see you all hopefully out there at either the outreach events that Zander has ongoing, or even the rallies on the 31st. So thank you all, both Zander and Emily, so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and thoughts and feelings on Reggie. I hope everyone learned something today. And I guess we'll see you all next week. Did you all have anything to add before we sign off?
And a big thanks to you for organizing this and inviting us onto the show. And as Zander said, reach out if you have questions about Reggie, if you want to get involved. We'd be happy to speak with you.
Perfect. All right. As always, if you all would like to keep up to date with what VIPO is up to, please be sure to join our supporters list by going to this link here. And we'll see you all next week for our next Environmental Justice Now.